شلامالوخن ورابب شين بيوخن قداهت بقتا برشتا لقارة أرخ الدين قداهت بقتا بيتهم زمخ بلشانة إنجليشاية. شلامالوخن, welcome to this very special interview that we are extremely honored to sit here and talk with Professor Simo Parpola here in Sydney, Australia from Cecil Hills. We conducting this interview, and it is personally for myself an extreme honor to sit here and conduct this interview, Professor. For me, it was a dream since my teenagehood. I read your books, heard about your name. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce the guest that we are here gathering. Professor Simo Parpola is a Finnish archaeologist specialized in the Neo-Assyrian Empire and a professor emeritus of Assyriology at the University of Helsinki, retired in 2009. Very welcome, Professor, to Zildo Media Show.
Thank you.
Professor, if you may please dive in, or before you do that, tell us about your where you're originally from, a bit about your childhood and your teenagehood, and then tell us why would you choose such a field and specializing or talking here in the Assyrian Empire. Why would you choose Assyriology from your childhood till this moment?
Well, I am from Helsinki, born in Helsinki, the capital. And from my childhood on, I was a man or a child who was interested in adventures and history, ancient history and ancient empires and so on. To be quite honest, I did not think of Assyriology as my future profession. I was more interested in Mesoamerican cultures, the Aztecs, the Mayas, and the Incas. And for 4 years during my teenage years, I really worked quite hard on it and collected a sizable library. My dream was to decipher the Mayan script, which I had actually been already deciphered, but the authorities in the field had not yet accepted the decipherment. However, when I became 17, I had to think more rationally about my future. So I chose Assyriology, which was taught in Finland. Otherwise, I would have, for Mesoamerican studies, I would have gone in my 70s already to Germany. And I was not yet ready for that.
Fair enough. You spent decades of reconstructing the intellectual and cultural world of Assyria. What was your first encounter with Cuneiform script, and did you ever imagine it would define your life work?
My first encounter was when I was in primary school in a history lesson. We saw Cuneiform, and I was impressed. But the real push that I thought to become an Assyriologist was after I had decided that that would be my profession, was my first year in the university. I was lucky to have a teacher who read Neo-Assyrian letters with cuneiform strict. So I had to from the very beginning, do my best to get along with the other students. There was only one other student in the class, but she had already 2 years of learning. I was just fresh arrival. Well, this forced me to work, and I worked day and night. I often was sitting till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
In our I don't find the
In your
English
home?
words. In any case, until 4 o'clock in the morning, but I did it in 2 months. So after 2 months, I read rather fluently the Cuneiform text,
Amazing.
Assyrian.
Professor, just for the viewers, for the knowledge, you obviously might be, just for my knowledge, your mother tongue or your native language is Finnish. So
Yes.
obviously, so that's why sometimes, so we can explain to the viewers, it's like us when we speak the Assyrian, and sometimes some words jumps in our brain and we cannot find the exact word or the explanation for it. So I totally understand that, especially for someone who practice multiple languages during the day. It's very not easy task, isn't it?
No.
Especially, and you even studied the ancient cuneiform.
Well, it is pretty easy for me to speak languages, but I do have to have some time to adjust, that I have to switch.
Indeed. For those who are watching you, those who may not be familiar with the Assyriology, how would you describe what this field truly studies beyond just ancient empires?
Of course, we have to know archaeology. It's a side discipline to Assyriology, because everything that we have has been excavated. And this is going to continue for a long time still, because there are hundreds of thousands of cuneiform documents still buried in the ground, which will shape our future. On the other hand, it's also linguistics. I have to know other Semitic languages than just Akkadian and Assyrian and Babylonian. I have to know Greek and then Syriac, you name it. So during my studies, I did all these things at the same time.
Yeah.
That I had to take courses in various languages and classical languages, Latin included. But it was very good, because Assyriology is a multidisciplinary science. It's not just the languages and archaeology, but you need many more fields of science in order to, do the results, because we are constantly encountered with problems that cannot be solved just by Assyriology. For instance, I have had to deal with astronomy.
Astronomy as well.
Astrology in its ancient and modern forms, even astronomy. Did I mention that already? Yes.
Yes, you did.
And medicine. We have several texts in the Royal Atlas which deal with diseases of the royal family. King also as well.
Professor, it is extremely hard for me to, when I've been told, and thanks to the Assyrian Australian Association, when I applied for a chance to interview you, I found it very hard to capture or compress thousands of years and your knowledge and expertise into 1 hour, or let's say more than 90 minutes. So please forgive me if I may quickly go into many questions at once, because I will do my very best to cover, because we have tons of questions, but of course the time will not help us. But if I may now, let's move on, and we speak about what makes you exactly choose the Assyrian Empire. And before I ask that, have you been in Assyria, which is now today in Iraq?
I have been there three times.
3 times?
Yes. First, with my students in an excursion that encompassed everything from the south, from Basra, and the reed thickets in the south, until Assyria in the north, Nineveh, Ashur, etc.
Mm-hmm. What makes the Neo-Assyrian Empire very remarkable and very special among the civilization of the world that we know?
First of all, naturally, that Neo-Assyrian Empire is the largest empire that was there.
It is.
And all the following empires were continued to be Assyria, just led by a different leadership, different nationality. The Persian Empire was based on the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and Babylonia actually was not named a Babylonian Empire at all, but it was still neighboring civilizations considered it a continuation of Assyria.
The language is a very wide question. And if I quickly please ask you, how can you describe the language or the development of the language, especially starting from the very beginning of the Assyrian Empire into nowadays? If you can give us like a waves of development of the language, because I personally, I'll try to make it very simple. As I mentioned, my ancestors had the cuneiform, and then suddenly we have the what's called Aramic text.
Yeah.
Why would an empire that advance and recorded thousands of information, why it would need a text from other tribes?
Well, Assyria is a East Semitic language, together with Babylonian and other forms of an Assyrian. Its oldest form is called Akkadian, whereas Aramaic and other Semitic languages are a West Semitic language. Hebrew, Phoenician, Arabic, they are an entirely different type of Semitic language. Now, when Assyria grew, it, of course, came to govern a wide variety of people who spoke these West Semitic languages. And Akkadian or Assyrian, I mean the ancient Assyrian language as an East Semitic language, was not intelligible to those new additions to the empire. So what happened was that the Assyrians themselves created the so-called Imperial Aramaic language.
Why, Professor?
Because it was written in West Semitic alphabet and was much more easy to write than the cuneiform script. Secondly, while the Assyrian elites wanted to, sort of, for prestige reasons, they wanted to distinguish themselves. and keep the cuneiform writing for themselves. However, they realized that it would have been stupid to govern using their own language, and therefore they created this imperial Aramaic from a mixture of the Aramaic dialects that were spoken in the conquered areas. From about 780 BC onwards, Imperial Aramaic was the official language of the empire alongside with the cuneiform, and everybody spoke it. It was like English in today's world. And even the royal house, including the king, was able to speak it, even though, of course, for obvious reasons, he continued using Assyrian, I mean the ancient form of Assyrian, in his court and in the neighboring province around Nineveh and so on.
Yeah. Professor, what I heard from, when we, as a beginners of the people like me who loves their nation and want to know more about their ancestors, I learned one thing or heard one thing, which says the Jewish people, or let's say the kingdom, called those who are not believers, called them Aramaic. Is that a true theory? Another meaning, let me tell you, the Arabs or the Muslims called those who would not believe in their religion kuffar, means infidels. Is it true, if we may say this, if this theory, is it true that the Jewish called that certain type of people who were close to Israel, which as we know it today times, is it real that they are Aramaic and means infidels or non-believers in God? It's very...
I must say, I don't know what the Jews think and how advanced their thinking is, but of course they wouldn't believe in the Jewish God. That is clear. They had their own religion, and of course the Jews can tell them whatever they wish. But I would like to say that the Aramaic people, who were the infidels.
Hang on, sorry, Professor. Do you believe then if their meaning means infidels?
No, not at all.
Okay,
Aramaic
just your friend. Yes.
Just a language designation like Arabic. It doesn't mean anything. Or, I mean, Akkadian means the kingdom of the city of Akkad. Yes. And Assyrian means the inhabitants of the land Ashur.
Fair enough. Yes, and yes. Aramaic?
Aramaic doesn't have that connotation. There were several tribes that lived in that area. I don't know what is the etymology of Aram.
Fair enough. Yeah. Moving forward, going back to cuneiform. So you told us that the king kept the cuneiform going into their system, into their everyday yes. communication. Then who used the Aramaic language?
Everybody.
The people?
Everybody, the common people and the royal house. It was Assyrian Aramaic. I mean, it was linguistically Aramaic. That is to say, it is Imperial Aramaic is still an West Semitic language, whereas Old Assyrian was an East Semitic. It is by its language type, it is East, West, but as in the Assyrian usage, it was Assyrian as the cuneiform script.
Among all the tablets that you explored or you came across, which one which tablets or which text was, or that you discovered, has emotionally moved you the most, and why, if I may ask?
I could say, but without thinking much, that it is a tablet found in a archaeological excavation where I was employed as the senior epitapher. We were digging in a city now called Ziyaret Tepe, but it is ancient Tushhan in Assyrian times. It's on the border of Turkey along the Tigris, and it was a fortress against Urartu in the north. Now, I was there in the second season. In the first season, we had found about 22 tablets. But when the second season came, the director of the excavation, Timothy Matney, told me in Helsinki, say, "Come quickly, we have found something." So I was there next day. I was presented with a letter which had been broken into 3 pieces. Luckily, I could put these pieces together into a single tablet, which was almost complete. And it had really very, very exciting content. I must say I couldn't go to bed, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning after the trip before I had deciphered it. It is a letter from a guy called Mannuki Ninua, who was the treasurer of that city, Tushan. And he starts by complaining that nobody listens to him. He is trying to put together an army, recruit a cohort, consisting of chariots and horsemen. But he said that I can't do anything. And he goes on like this and ends the letter in a desperate, "I'm done. Death will come out of this." So he's trying to build defenses for the city against Nebuchadnezzar, who is approaching it with his Babylonian troops. Since this is a border town, and since it's a bit distance from Nineveh, actually Tim Matney and I were expecting something like that there would be a document from those final days that we could find. In fact, most of the tablets found in Ziyaret Tepe were dated to 609 BC, which is 3 years later than the fall of Nineveh. So that came really at the end of the realm. And I can tell you that the whole deed was organized just in the hope of finding something like this. But we never expected that it would be so dramatic in content. This is at least my most exciting find that I witnessed. And I think most Assyriologists would agree with me, because of course we found other kinds of documents too in the city, but they were mostly economic in content, but nothing to do with the end of this city.
Speaking about the language, if we are time travelers now, let's say if we time travel back into the time of our ancestors, would they understand me, or would I understand them with the language that I speak at home with my family?
I'm so sure of it.
Yeah.
Sure of it, yes. Of course, there might be some initial adjustment to be done, so that you. But immediately from the very beginning, they would understand you. Some words have changed, etc. But
I'm so speechless because I feel so. I have lots of course. For me, you are the link between the history and nowadays. That's why, as I mentioned, I have lots of questions. But talking about that, you spoke, or you written about the Assyrian tree of life, and this by itself, it's a wide topic, and its connection to the later Jewish and Greek tradition, which I don't understand how. Could you explain that theory for our audience in very simple terms?
I will
Something
try.
that's to our ancestors and other nations take it.
Yes.
And us,
Yes.
we don't value it that much. Why?
I'll try to explain. Let's say a special tree with a particular iconography occurs in masses in the Assyrian royal palaces. Is depicted, for instance, in the palace of Ashurnasirpal II from the 9th century BC. It occurs in 500 forms in the palace, in all corridors, all rooms, the royal the same word is missing for me. Where his throne is, throne room,
yes.
throne room, yes. And every single specimen is a little bit different. There are no identical ones among those 500 representations. Then it also, so it is a tree that doesn't look like an ordinary tree. It's like a palm tree with surrounded by a garland of garland with cones, fir cones, and etc. It's a special non-natural tree, but it also occurs as a natural tree, looking more like as a palm tree, etc. I would say it is a mandala, a thing to think about, to speculate about, containing secret information in its form. Information that is only accessible a few privileged ones. I'm talking about people like adherents of the goddess Ishtar, who lived in communities which could be initiated in these secret things. Well, it is a secret, contains the secrets of heaven and earth, as they call it. Everything about the nature of the Assyrian god, Ashur, and the other gods as well. Plus, very, very many things related to the religion, etc. It formed a, so to speak, it was like a handy, continuing all the things that modern phones can contain, if you knew how to open it. And these diseases, they were ordered there, and these things were meditated on, and you had to keep them secret, because they contained the way to eternal life.
Looking back over your decades of field work and translation, what were your biggest challenges, academic or personal, in bringing Assyria back to life?
My greatest challenges has been, without any doubt, money. Because I wanted to start the project I have been leading already 10 years before, but I couldn't get I couldn't get the Finnish Academy to finance it. Because at that time people were more socially minded, and let's put it in this way, work was what they understood. One of my colleagues taught the stipends there by writing history of work.
History of work.
The history of work. History of working.
Yes.
For such subjects, they could get money, but not for Assyriology. But fortunately, the situation changed in 1986, and I immediately submitted an application to the Academy of Finland, and I succeeded, in getting it, getting the money necessary.
Talking about Assyria, and I've noticed many times you were referring between the ancient Assyrian history and linking them with the Bible and the Old Testament. And since you mentioned about the Assyria, what's your thoughts of the prophecy of Isaiah in 19, where it says, if I may remember it specifically, word by word, it says, in that day there will be a way between Assyria to Egypt, and the Assyrians and the Egyptian will worship together, and their third member will be, or the third part will be the Israelis. They will join, and all these three nations, they will worship the God. Here, talking about Assyria, what's your theory about it? And do you believe Assyria and the Assyrian nation will be back and ruling?
Well, I don't think that this prophecy of Isaiah refers to our times. It must have been, he must have had something more else in mind. And I know that this prophecy is quoted also in context that might hit the time of Jesus. But in my opinion, I don't have any faith in prophecies as them.
That's fine. That's fine. We understand, and I respect your point of view, no matter what's your point of view, whether with or against.
But I personally think that we will see. I think that we will see. You and me will see the day when Assyria is back there, but then in its ancient homeland.
That's amazing. You mentioned about the Lord Jesus, and you told him, don't you think he was a bit close to the Assyrian heritage? And I will be very careful and specific in this, because he remembered them, especially in Luke 11, when he mentioned about the man of Nineveh will rise again and will judge. Don't you think the prophecy of Isaiah and the vision of the Lord, and also I will, if I may take you back again to the King Abgar of Edessa, and the theory, or let's say the theory or the history, for us is a fact. For the other people could be a theory, or could be not fact for them. But for us, we believe that King Abgar communicated with the Lord and sent him. So don't you think, in fact, if I may change it, what's your view about Luke 11, and especially the Lord Jesus mentioned the men of Nineveh?
I know that I think that he knew what he said. And I would like to stress one thing, which is very important. Lord Jesus was not a Jew. He was not Jewish. He was Samaritan. And that's an entirely different thing. It was in the Gospels. When you read the Gospels, you will see that the writers of the Gospels were very well versed with Assyrian religion. They knew Assyrian religion too well, not to have been adepts of this sacred tree, that is to say, which is a summary of the Assyrian religion. And I believe, personally, that Jesus was one of them. I mean, he like the writers of the Gospels, was also initiated in these secrets. This is not a place to go into this, but I would like to emphasize that he was a Samaritan, not a Jew. He was a despised Samaritan. The Jews hated the Samaritans because they didn't share their faith, and because.
But Professor, if I may, I'm sorry to get, but isn't it mentioned that the Lord Jesus, his humanity was related to the family tree of King David?
Of course.
But you have different theory.
Of course, no.
I mean, and as I mentioned, please, I would love to hear from you. I'm not here to. I would so love to hear your knowledge, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're conducting. We would like more to hear your opinion, your theory, and what you know.
I believe that it is correct that he was related to the family of King David, but it is a long history, from King David to Jesus,
to Mary, to Saint Mary.
Yes,
to his mom.
It's a long way, And in between, there was, for instance, the conquest of Samaria and the Israelite kingdom by the Assyrians. And after that, what happened was that tens of thousands of Israelites were deported to far away. They were deported to the distant Medes, to Persia, some of them. And some of them were deported to Habur River, and so on. And they were replaced by people from Mesopotamia. Assyria and Babylonia. So there was a fundamental change of a social change in Israel after it fell to the Assyrians. It was organized into an Assyrian province, Samaria. The city of Samaria was totally rebuilt in Assyrian style, and they sent missionaries from Assyria, converted Samaritans, to preach them fear of God and king. That is to say, to teach them Assyrian religion. All this comes in between King David and Jesus Christ. I must briefly mention that the Star of Bethlehem, which predicted Jesus' coming, is a real historical event. It's a conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Saturn, which repeated itself during 1 year 3 times. This conjunction is extremely rare. It can occur only about every 800 years. And after the Star of Bethlehem, it has occurred only twice. And it predicted the birth of a savior king in Syria, Palestine. Yes. So all this comes, this is not common knowledge. If the astronomical fact or astronomical phenomenon
so it's an astronomical fact.
It's an astronomical fact.
And it's available within your study. So
yes.
Fair enough.
So
yeah, please.
No, you. Please.
No, okay, thank you, sir. Now, since we're talking about the religion, very simple question. We start with this topic. Did the Assyrians were worshipping one god or multiples?
Yeah, they were doing both. They were serving one god only.
Professor, worshipping. You said serving. Yes, serving. Yes. Sorry if I just got
They worship one god and one god only.
Yes. But you said multiples as well, so please carry on. I'm sorry that I cut you.
There were a multiplicity of other gods in Mesopotamia. And with every conquest of their new lands, there became more gods. Were incorporated in the empire. Now, what the Assyrians favored this sort of view, because all the gods were only powers or manifestations of passion. Just like the angels, myriads of angels of Christianity carry out tasks, etc., from the God. They carry out. Ashur was a distant god that was not understandable to the masses. He was beyond this world, this universe. But his creations, the other gods, were his agents in the world. They carried out God's will in this material world. They were different from him, but they were still him. They were part of his emanations, if you can follow me.
Indeed. Professor, in your lectures at the Gilgamesh Festival 2025, you mentioned, I just remember if I quote, you said that the god Ashur was a mixture or a combination of 8 other gods or powers. Then saying that, where did we learn about God Ashur? Which source that is giving us a full story about him?
There's no full story, but there are, religious poems, etc., that define his character. Also, one thing is that when they write Ashur, it's in the Neo-Assyrian times, it's mostly a single cuneiform wedge, a horizontal wedge, which is a logogram, a word sign for only. He's the only God. These other thoughts have been created by Ashur. They are not him, but they represent his powers, like, for instance, Adad, the storm god. He's the aspect of an aspect of Ashur as rain and storms, etc. Then there is the goddess Ishtar, who is the goddess of love. She symbolizes.
Before we move on, we want to learn more. Professor, if I may please ask you, going back to Ashur, gods Ashur, gods of the ancient, then why do we see at the Enoma Elish, the story of creation, we learn about many gods there? And if I may say, what we understand that Ansha is either the grandfather or the father of the god. Now we have two understanding. Here we're learning that God Ashur is the only one. That means have no father, no beginning.
He's
but there, but quickly, yes, there we learn that Ansha is his grandfather, and there's the Assyrian Trinity, Anu, El, and Enlil. And then we have Ashtar, and multiple gods, and Nabu. A mixture of gods. Please, before you move on to Ishtar, let's focus a little bit, if I may ask, since we are interviewing you and everyone is listening, tell us more about this, because it's a very debatable subject nowadays among the Assyrian or the Neo-Assyrian nation that are living today.
Okay. Let's speak a little bit about Enuma Elish.
Please.
It is a composition that was composed around 1450 BC. This is just after the creation of the Middle Assyrian Empire, when initially the Assyria and the Assyrian Babylonia were almost equally powerful. However, the things changed, and it is, the fact is that most of the manuscripts of Enuma Elish were written in Assyria.
In Assyrian.
In Assyria. The overwhelming majority of the manuscript that we have was written in Assyria. And what is more, they are not the only ones, and there are many other important religious works that were composed at the same time. Now, I don't think that, it is excluded that Enuma Elish actually was composed in Assyria, that it is an Assyrian myth of creation, so not a Babylonian one.
Oh, okay, that's why you read my mind. So is Enuma Elish, quickly for the people so they can know, is Enuma Elish, is it correct to say it's an Assyrian creation story?
We cannot prove it.
Or Babylonian?
I think it is an Assyrian creation story. And for instance, the thing that Marduk, the god of Babylon, plays a role on it is and then returns at the end of the epic. He returns to his father, and
who is
his father?
Who is who?
Who is his father? Is Anshar. Yes.
Is Marduk Ashur?
Pardon me.
Is Marduk?
Marduk is not Ashur. Marduk
is different, separate.
That's too complicated.
Yes, that's fine, and we're loving it. We're loving it. If that's okay with you.
I can only say that it fits very well with the Assyrian religion, so that but the Babylonian God serves the interests. I mean, he is like the crown prince, Assyrian crown prince, who always meets the enemies of his father in a battle, and then returns triumphantly to his home. Now, the Marduk does the same thing here. He fought the he fought the Tiamat, the beast, the terrible dragon that shatters the kingdom of heaven, if we want to put it in that way.
Sorry, and, king who?
Kingdom of heaven.
Doom.
I mean, the interest at least. And who is killed by Marduk and then taken back to Marduk's city. Now, I feel very uncomfortable to say these things, because these are more complicated things than look at the first time.
And is that okay if you want to talk about them? Or?
I think that this is it would have been, the deluge and the killing of Tiamat, are things that would never have performed by Ashur as himself. They would have to be delegated to his creation, his son, so to speak, Marduk. If it is a question of whether it is Babylonian or Assyrian, the chances are rather Assyrian than Babylonian creation.
Professor, please take a while. I'm going to speak to. It is very crucial to understand, and as I mentioned, it's always a debate between the young people, nowadays the movement of those who believes that, look, we understand that Assyrians, they are the first nation that converted to Christianity. And then nowadays, because of the technology and the internet and the Facebook and social media platforms, nowadays a movement is more being seen and heard among the nations. A lot of calls are calling. They go into debating. And that is our immortal debate between us. Who are us? Us, those who believe, who are Christians, and those who are still claiming that Ashur is their God. Which is, we understand, we're living in the modern life and we understand, respect each other. But since we are speaking with the great souls, that, as I called you, as if you accepted from me, that linker, that's why we would like you to enlighten us. And that's why I have lots of questions. And so you can help us understand well. And perhaps you may contribute in understanding our history, and perhaps maybe we can unite, because the Babylonian have Marduk. And if now I ask, what's the symbol of Marduk? How does he look like?
Dragon is one of his symbols.
Is he a dragon?
Yes.
So he's not a human.
No, Marduk is one of his symbols. I mean, he's the dragon of Tiamat.
So he's not the one like Ashur's symbol.
He has many symbols.
He has many symbols,
yeah.
but Ashur has only one. Or same, Ashur has multiple symbols.
Yes, he has also.
Also has symbols.
Yes. But the point is, what my point is that Ashur is what he really is God with a capital G. God. The God. The only God. As we speak about God nowadays, he is the same. I mean, and he has a name, like the Jewish God has Yahweh.
Fair enough.
But the Assyrians often referred to him as God, just as we do when referring to.
So let's have again a break here. So do you enlighten us that the current God, which is we worship as a Christians,
Yes.
You are believing that he is same Ashur?
I am claiming that the Assyrians saw him just as we see
my
our
ancestors.
God. Yes.
And then, please carry on.
No, he is God. I mean,
God of the ancestry.
In the sense of a transcendent God that is there, somewhere there, you know.
But again,
but he is not in this world. Like, for instance, we never think that the God inhabits this world. He is outside of it. And so did the ancient Assyrians think.
So you're talking about the ancient Assyrians now?
The ancient Assyrians. And as the present day Assyrians think of him as well. You
Some
think
of them
of him the same way.
Think of him what? That he is the God.
He's the God.
But now it's very complicated. Now we're going into, you were right, we're going into very difficult.
He had the name of Ashur, of course, and you call him, think of him as Ashur also. But I'm just trying to say that it is the same thing.
But we believe that, but then again, there's a tons of questions we'll produce now, because we believe as a Christian then Jesus, the Lord Jesus is God. Then what's your say on this?
Well, I'm unable to say anything. I think we better continue.
To stop, we better to stop this.
No, better to stop this particular topic, because I'm unable to say anything more than I have.
More than I have. But I at least thank you for trying for this, because we are very, a lot of people, of course, our mind are perhaps maybe in further other opportunities, maybe we can discuss that. Let's go back. Thank you. I will take your offer. And it's up to you again, if you want to answer. Just that was the last question about this topic of the religion. If we go back to Jonah went back to Nineveh. If the Assyrian nation back there, they were believers of their religion, why would they believe Jonah straight away and listen to his call and fast for 3 days?
Well, his
what's your take?
Was a miracle, of course.
So what's your take about this?
Pardon me?
What's your take? Sorry, what do you think about this?
Of course, they would believe him because he was rescued by a miracle. He is gulped down by a gigantic whale, who then spits him out, and he is saved after he had already fallen from the ship. his rescue was a miracle. Why wouldn't they believe him? Why wouldn't yes? Doesn't the Bible say that the Ninevites repented when he came?
And what's the historical, since we're talking about history, historical facts and biblical facts?
I cannot, I'm not a specialist in Jordan and haven't researched him, this pivotal book. So this is all I can say about it.
Fair enough. Professor, indeed, this topic was very interesting, and it has a lot of, could be for some, might be challenging questions, but here I would like to clarify for the viewers. I'm here interviewing a great source of Assyrian history. All these are just, we are debating, and according to the professor, he's sharing his point of view. So here, as a presenter, my role is to ask the questions that comes into most of people, or the Assyrian people, or maybe the non-Assyrian as well. So please forgive us, and I believe you also sharing what you know and what you've been exposed or explored or found within the artifacts. Please carry on. I believe you have a quick message in with this specially topic of the religion.
Yes, I believe that the Assyrian religion directly originates from the ancient Assyrian religion. And it comes through Jesus Christ, of course. Who else? Whom I am 100% certain that he had access to ancient Assyrian religious doctrines, and was not only had access, but was a deep believer and propagator of these things.
And allow me to say, Professor, what facts do you have to support your claim?
The Gospels are replete of references to Mesopotamian myths that could never have been known to them except through the cult of Ishtar that was planted in Samaria, the ancient Israel province, after it was conquered by the Assyrians.
Professor, again, going back to this very difficult and interesting, filled with theories, beliefs, facts. Some may agree, may disagree, but here we're only discussing. It doesn't necessarily reflect my belief personally. I just would like to mention this again because we believe, obviously, this will be on the media, on the net. And there's some will agree, some will disagree. And that's why I'm mentioning my role here is to discuss this so we can perhaps, we may answer some of the, give answers maybe for some of the questions that are maybe difficult, or could be, again, other people may question these facts. Are you close to, how much you are close to the Assyrian Church of the East and its doctrine or history?
I am not very close, but I have read, its main dogmas and so on. And I find, I can't help finding similarities with the ancient Assyrian religion.
How?
How? just reading, because many things are phrased in the same way and are in agreement with the Assyrian evidence. You cannot, to put in a different way, there are small things.
Small things.
You cannot, things that may not seem related, but you would recognize them, their similarity.
It may remind you of some of the thoughts.
The thoughts are in broad line, quite in line with the Assyrian religion, naturally, in a level which is invisible to us. It was these, as I mentioned earlier, the central doctrines were secret. You cannot accept that, the Assyrian people in the streets were up to date with these beliefs that were kept secret with the threat of death. If you leak these secrets, you will be dead.
Right. So that's really one of, for us, then do you think that you're just mentioning that if you speak up, you might get threatened? Is that what I understood? Can you repeat about the threatened and?
No. When we were talking about the tree of life.
Tree of life.
I
yes.
said that these truths about heaven and earth were strictly secret.
Yes.
And if you leak them out, you would be dead. So these secrets were only for the initiated, the people initiated in these mysteries, including the royal family, for instance, but also, other persons. You could join the club, so to speak, be initiated, but then you had to, stick to the rules and not leak this. They were not matters that, because Assyrian religion, of course, was an instrument also for the empire. The church has always been, a powerful supporter of the regime.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to say is that it was the same thing was also in other mystery religions. Assyrian religion was a mystery religion, like Gnosticism, for instance, Gnosis. And it was, and Christianity, by the way, in the beginning was strictly a mystery religion. So it was not a religion that was, it could be preached, but of course then in totally different terms, what they would have been used in the cult of Ishtar, for instance.
But Professor, if the religion of Assyrian, my ancestors, were so solid, if I may say, why would this religion vanish, or after the fall of Nineveh, 612 BC? There is almost, if we consider the give and take with the years, but very quickly, 700 years, 612 to the birth of the Lord Jesus Christ. There is a huge gap. Why would the Assyrian people who fled, or let's say fled, or the remaining of the pure Assyrian people who were still in Assyria or surrounding, which is in Edessa, which we call it the small kingdoms after that, and there's Okay, here we go. The question: why would that huge amount of nation accept Christianity after 700 years and leave their origin religion if it's that solid? I really would like to understand.
It's
Why would they quickly? Sorry, what would they accept Jesus so quickly?
It's just because it was so solid. You see, the people when the Babylonians and Medes conquered Assyrian cities, rolling cities, and royal cities, the population, the people didn't vanish anywhere. They stayed there where they had been, and so did all the institutions, etc., that existed in the realm. They did not. They were just taken over or a little bit modified. For instance, the conquerors, but they were still there. All these 700 years, they were there in place, and cuneiform writing continued to be written. There were libraries everywhere. You could study religion. These cults, secret cults, where these truths of heaven and earth were propagated. They were there, and they kept flourishing. And all these later early Christian movements like Gnosticism, etc., they are just variants on that. We have several Gnostic treatises that are almost direct translations in Aramaic from cuneiform sources. Can you? Why would these all the people who believe that? Why would they forget about this? Why would they not stick there? It is continuity and a little change on the surface, but the important things continue to function as they. Lamps were, raised. Wars were warred, etc. The fundamental things didn't change at all. There's no gap, believe me.
Now, of course, I'm just listening to you because you are the teacher here. No, but a huge number. Do you agree? A large number of the nation converted to Christianity. And the world knows that the first nation converted to Christianity, even the kingdom. Quickly.
Yes. The thing is that they converted because they felt it was their religion. They believed in Jesus Christ because it was totally in accord with what had been preached in Assyria for centuries. And, it looked like, everything had disappeared and there's a gap.
Okay.
But it's fallacy. Because the thing is simply that we do not, all the documents that were written on papyrus or pergament, Aramaic, are destroyed with very negligible exceptions, because they do not are not as durable as the cuneiform tablets. So the fact that we don't have the sources doesn't mean that they were not there.
No, of course, of course, Professor. Then I do have a couple of questions, although I mentioned, but I really would like to ask, do you think Assyriologists or historians are ever pressured, whether financially or otherwise, to avoid speaking openly about Assyria? Or is that just a misconception?
I don't think that they are pressurized, no. I think many of them tend to think in the same lines as you just said, that there is a gap there, while there is no gap. we have enough sources, to show how it really was.
Since you say that, Professor, and I'm happy to hear about this, then why there's no much speaking about Assyria and Assyrian history and Assyrian Empire in the media?
Yes, because, you see, I have colleagues who wouldn't believe what I say, because they have their own conceptions, and they have not studied these things as long as and as thoroughly as I have. Usually, when somebody presents a new theory like me, you have opposition, great opposition, and that, or opponents, we don't believe, etc. And that's it. Mostly, it stops there. You can't believe how, childish some Assyriologists can be in not facing the facts that are there. Mm-hmm. You may cite your evidence, and that's all right, but they don't care. That's a thing if it goes against their own beliefs. That's unfortunately the case also with scientists.
Have you personally ever been told not to talk about Assyria? Have you ever personally been told not to speak about Assyria,
no.
Not to preach? Or no, just for us.
Yeah.
Then very quickly, the last question will be, then why suddenly nowadays we're speaking about the Assyria and slowly is rising? Or maybe, do you agree, or you have different thought about this? We've never seen that much coverage about Assyria. Do you agree about this? But other nations or other history are very easily covered in the international media or individual countries.
I don't know if there is so much coverage about Assyria. Of course, we have had a lot of research, and if it is books, etc., have been produced. So, but I don't know.
Fair enough. Professor, the technology of artificial intelligence, how much the Assyriologist field are taking benefits of this technology. We are glad to have number of Assyriologists, but on the other hand, we have 10, perhaps if I correctly may say, 100,000 of tablets or clays that needs to be interpreted or translated.
Yes.
But we don't have manpower against a huge number.
All right.
How much can you use the AI or the artificial intelligence in this field? Do you think it's a good source to be introduced in the Assyriology?
It's a good tool. It's a good tool because you can, first, of course, the research material that we have has to be digitized, and all of it, if possible. And it can be accomplished with today's technology easily, if you are determined to do that. We computerized the Neo-Assyrian material in a matter of a few years, and it's been long available online. Once the material has been computerized and is available, then it's a relatively simple thing for AI, to add Assyrian language and cuneiform writing to its language models. And then we can have control over the entire material without having to search. You don't know how long it takes, to search for even simple facts if it has not been computerized. So I know that it is the time will come when you can pose a simple question. What about so such and such, and the AI will reply in a reliable way,
and maybe
more or less reliable way, yes.
And I'm more interested to, if it was up to me, I would maybe invest that technology into teaching that technology how to read the cuneiform.
Yes.
Because we almost reaching the end of the interview, but how many Assyriologists that you would like to mention their names so we know? Because I personally, as I mentioned, and I'm very thrilled, I'm very honored, as I mentioned, I cannot stress enough how happy, honored, and to speak to you or interview you. It is a dream for me. But again, coming back to this main question, we know Professor Simo Parpola, and we get to know, of course, and we are thankful for Professor Stephanie Daly, especially after her documentary. And I personally know also Professor of Zach Cheery. And I'm happy that we have these names. Do you have other names? Is there other well-known names in the world of the Assyriologists that you would like to mention so we get to know them?
Many of them have my collaborators and my teachers have already died. Yes,
I understand.
The big names, so to speak. And of course, it's very difficult for me to write their names because, for instance, one of my students has had a big project going on for 8 years now. The ancient empires, which encompasses Assyria, Babylonia, Media, and so on. The director of this project is Sana Svärd, a student of mine. But then there are other important projects, but none of them is concentrated simply on Assyria. They do other things as well.
Do you encourage the Assyrian young men and women to study this field?
Absolutely.
And flourish? But
absolutely.
Some of them that may say it's not going to give me a bright future, or is it true? Does it may pay well?
My mother and father told the same thing to me. Don't do that. Become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but don't do this stupidity. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Can I? Yeah. Because it's similar to us. Same, it's on. Why?
Yes, because.
Do you regret?
I don't regret at all. I have had that's my life, you know. I've given this thing the entire life, and that I wanted to do from the beginning. But the only thing is that you have to be very certain that it is your destiny, to put it that way.
You need to believe in it.
Yes, that is your talent. Assyriology is your talent, and you want to do your best to achieve your dreams. And you have to work a lot, of course, but you also have to rest. You have to balance it, and you must not try to be perfect in everything, because that way you will never finish.
what would you like to say for the Assyrian people? If I may say, do you have a message that you would like to really make it available for all the viewers and anyone who will listen to what you're going to say next? What you would like to tell them?
I would like to say that the Assyrians whom I have met here and elsewhere too, in Sweden, in America, are just like their ancestors. I can see it not only from their looks, but as if they were taken from the Assyrian reliefs in the palaces of the king, but also from your nature, because I have seen much determination, fast, extremely good social skills, extremely knowledgeable people. In fact, all these are features that the ancient Assyrians had, and that's what made them, enabled them to build their empire. And I seriously think that you must keep on, preserving your heritage, because we never know what the future brings in its trail. And think about the Jews. What were there in the 40s, the 940s? 600 million dead, and almost a whole, with no home country, etc. But where are they now?
And
two generations have passed since then, and now they are even too powerful, in their own country.
Indeed, true.
Yes. So I think that we are living in a very uncertain world at the moment. But think of it that the Jews persisted for 2,000 years before they could fulfill their dream. So put your faith in the Lord and persist in what you are doing, and I'm sure that you will do it.
Amen. Professor, I think the Assyrian people may give me that chance. I would like to say on behalf of my Assyrian nation, and allow me please to say on behalf of my ancestors, my mighty kings, all of them, I'd like to thank you so much that I cannot stop thanking you on behalf of all mentioned for your ongoing dedication, your time, your entire life that you give for the Assyrian people, Assyria as an empire, and for the Assyriologist field. I'd like again to say thank you, and may God bless you. My Lord Jesus Christ bless you, and I respect whatever you believe in, that it's grant you health and strength to carry on and continue what you are started. So thank you so much again on behalf of all the Assyrian nation, all the viewers, and on behalf of my ancestry, and on behalf of my kings, the mighty kings of Assyria.
Well, thank you so much for your words. And I regret a bit that I could not express myself with such a precision and skill that I would have liked to do, Yes.
I think you've done great, and because this is you, Professor, and we value you. Thank you so much once again. Until we meet again, I really wish you a very best stay here in Sydney, Australia. I believe you visited the primary school that we take pride in it here, that's been made by the Assyrian Church of the East. And perhaps, I'm not sure if you're going to see the high school as well.
I did.
Oh, you saw the high school.
I did both.
So
On consecutive days, yes.
wonderful. So I believe that you saw great achievements of the Assyrian people here.
I think
Please
that,
go.
that these two institutions were really, superb, really. And they are the things that your nation requires, in order to
Indeed.
keep up your great heritage.
Indeed. And I hope with this interview, both schools will see this and perhaps maybe they will strengthen more their Assyrian faculty and they're reviving the Assyrian language furthermore and invest more into the Assyrian language teaching and also the Assyrian heritage and history. So thank you for mentioning this again, Professor. It's a great, great honor. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. To conclude, I'd like to thank you all who are watching this interview. Especially would like to thank the Assyrian Australian Association, the organizers of Gilgamesh Festival 2025, Mr. Alfred Mansour, and the whole committee who made this festival available to us. And in fact, make this the visiting of Professor Simo Parpola and Professor Stephanie Daly to visit Sydney, Australia. It was an amazing step. And again, we appreciate the efforts of the Assyrian Australian Association. Also, I would like to thank the whole crew from Zildo Media, especially from Video Eket staff, Mr. Isaac O'Raham and Ninos O'Raham, for being with us, filming and documenting both interviews. And from myself, Emmanuel Yusuf, I'd like to say, until I see you in the coming interviews, stay safe and pushum shena.